coming up on the Inside Indiana Business Television podcast. Details behind a $50 million 850-job announcement in Southeast Indiana. A museum brings in a valuable new collection. A nonprofit health clinic continues to grow. The INnovators looks at the mailbox of the future. TechPoint has a new take on teacher development. The latest on sports gaming in Indiana. And an update on some of the biggest quality of place projects in downtown Indy. Welcome to the Inside Indiana Business Television podcast. I'm Andy Ober. A Louisville-based healthcare solutions provider is making a big expansion into Indiana to the tune of $50 million and 850 new jobs. Local economic leaders say PharmaCord may just be the beginning. One Southern Indiana CEO Wendy Dant-Chesser and Executive Vice President Matt Hall joined Inside Indiana Business host Gary Dick to detail the massive deal.
Well, big news this week in Southeast Indiana as Jeffersonville will become home to a third location for Louisville-based PharmaCord. The healthcare services provider plans to invest more than $52 million for a new facility that will house operations and a call center and as many as 850 jobs over the next 5 years. One Southern Indiana says the wages for those new jobs expected to be about 10% above the Clark County average. One SI President Wendy Dant-Chesser and Executive Vice President Matt Hall are here now to explain how the announcement is the result of regional collaboration. And welcome to you both.
Thank you so much.
And congratulations. This is a big deal. 850 jobs over 5 years. PharmaCord, a company based in Louisville, will keep that headquarters there, but really expand into Jeffersonville and the River Ridge Commerce Center.
It's a great opportunity for our entire region to celebrate the fact that a local company is expanding and is going to continue to benefit the Louisville metro area. We're fortunate that we've got the infrastructure in place in Jeffersonville and River Ridge specifically to really support that type of development.
Yeah, I want to ask you about the regional collaboration. I think that's an important element of the story. Matt, as you look at this deal, when did it come together? Because PharmaCord, again, 850 jobs, $52 million investment. This is a big deal.
It is a big deal. PharmaCord reached out to us in January of this year. So really this moved fairly quickly for a project of this size and a company of this caliber. But to sort of tagline on to what Wendy was saying, this company could have gone anywhere on the globe that they wanted to go, and we're thrilled that they decided to expand into Southern Indiana.
A lot of things happening in Southern Indiana, among them the River Ridge Commerce Center, which we do a lot of stories on because it's really an incredible development, 6,000 total acres. This adds another gem, if you will, to that development, which is really becoming nationally recognized.
Absolutely. It is really, in many ways, the hotspot of the Midwest. We are very fortunate that we have this. Many folks before us have laid the groundwork for the development that we're seeing now. So we're seeing a tremendous amount of interest in this business park and a tremendous amount of project activity that's focused on River Ridge.
Yeah, Amazon, a steel campus connected or will ultimately be connected to the Port of Indiana there. Really attractive spot. Wendy, regions all over the state talk about collaborating regionally. And it doesn't always happen. This is a case, it's been challenging everywhere, including Southeast Indiana. This is an example of some collaboration across the river, right, with Louisville.
We've had some great relationships with our local partners in Louisville, both the Chamber and the Economic Development arm of the city. And this is really a nice way of us to say, we've got this great ability to grow our region together. Let's take that message out. Let's make sure that the folks in Frankfort and Indianapolis recognize that we have more to gain together if we're on the same page.
Well, and part of that effort, I know, is going to be something that's called Four-Door, right? Yes. And it's a website, but it's a marketing push to really market Southeast Indiana. What's it all about?
It is. So we've been sending mixed branding messages at times. Are we part of Louisville or are we part of Indiana? Well, the reality is we're part of both. And how do we sell those assets that we have? Four-Door really looks at the 4 R's that we have in infrastructure: roads, river, rail, and runways. And the 4 R's together, we've branded that the Four-Door. And it gives us the ability to lead with the assets of Southern Indiana, with the assets of Louisville as a backdrop.
Matt, as we wrap up, you've been in economic development now for a long time, 30 years,
That's
right,
right,
as I understand it.
right.
Congratulations. As you look at the potential for Southeast Indiana really coming into focus now, it's a result of a lot of efforts over the years, but is it really now beginning to pay dividends?
It absolutely is. We the River Ridge, for example, the push behind developing River Ridge was to replace jobs that had been lost there. And I'm happy to report that we are well over 10,000 jobs at that facility now and growing. So the time has come, and it's great to sit and see this interest in this development of projects within the park.
PharmaCord is the company moving or expanding, I should say, into Southeast Indiana, 850 jobs. Big collaboration with Louisville on that as well. Wendy Danchesser, also Matt Hall, One Southern Indiana. Thanks for being here. We'll talk to you soon.
Thank you so much, Gary.
All right.
Still to come, Hope Healthcare grows its footprint, and we spotlight a new type of high-tech mailbox. But first, the Eiteljorg Museum of American Indians and Western Art has acquired a major collection of historical Native American art from the Great Lakes region. A nearly $3 million grant from Lilly Endowment made the acquisition possible. Eiteljorg President John Van Osdal came in studio to talk about the addition.
And congratulations on 30 years. We'll talk about that in a minute. But first of all, this Lilly Endowment grant, nearly $3 million, is really a big shot in the arm for a larger initiative, the Great Lakes Initiative, which is very ambitious.
Well, it is something new for us. We're the most significant museum of our kind in the Midwest. We're really the only museum of our kind. And yet our presentation of the Great Lakes cultures, the people who have always lived here, is probably the smallest part of our presentation. So we set out with a new 5-year plan that says we're going to become the leader in presenting the cultures of the Great Lakes. To do that, we needed to grow our collection of these kinds of materials. We found what we needed. We approached the Lilly Endowment and made a request, and they honored that request.
Wow, nearly $3 million. You have moved the items to the Eiteljorg, right? There's a lot to talk about, could probably talk about for a couple of hours, but give us a thumbnail of some of these items and what folks will see there. There
are about 400 objects in the collection, so it's large. They represent the 48 nations of the Great Lakes area. That includes parts of Canada as well, Ontario. And the collections are rare. The items are very important historically, and this collector only wanted pristine things, so they're in great condition.
Yeah.
Makes it very valuable.
Yeah. 30 years, as I mentioned, for the Eiteljorg in downtown Indianapolis has had such an impact on our quality of life, quality of place that we talk so much about. As you look at the impact, the economic impact, the tourism impact, talk a little bit about that, John, because it's substantial.
Well, over the past 5 years, we've focused on increasing attendance by people locally. And in fact, we doubled our ticket sales largely because more people from our region were coming, or from the Indianapolis area. But with this new initiative, we're going to reach out to all the Great Lakes states and into Canada and encourage visitation for people who are interested in Native arts and culture, and frankly, Native people themselves. Mm-hmm. There are a couple 100,000 people in this region who I think would love to visit us. We're within a 5-hour drive of a lot of major cities.
Yeah, and looking forward, this Great Lakes initiative, as it evolves, will lead to a bit of a transformation of the museum down the road as well.
Right. It's going to culminate with a complete revision of the upper floor of the museum where our Native American art history and culture is presented. We're gutting it down to the bare walls and starting over. That'll reopen in late 2021.
Yeah, very quickly, you've been at the museum 23 of the 30 years of its existence. In your view, the Eiteljorg, the other great tourist venues and museums here, how does that add? How have you seen that change and add and benefit quality of life here?
Well, we have incredible cultural institutions. They're all important and they all attract a great audience. But we're really about the indigenous peoples of this region, the people who were here first. International tourists love us. There's a great interest in not only the history of the West, but in Native peoples themselves. So I think every city you need something that's unique and a special draw, and that's one role the Eiteljorg plays.
Certainly is. 30 years in business for the Eiteljorg Museum, and now a major new attraction. John Van Osdal, as always, great to see you. Thanks for being on.
Thanks, Gary.
All right.
Later in the podcast, new mailbox technology takes the spotlight in the INnovators with Dr. K, and TechPoint looks to make teacher development a little more fun. But now, Hope Healthcare Services, a nonprofit health clinic in Avon that serves Hoosiers without health insurance, has added 2 new providers and is expanding into Marion County. The new providers join a network of hundreds of volunteers and clinicians that have helped patients since it launched in 2005. Executive Director John Milan joined Kylie Valletta in the business of health.
So Hope Healthcare talks about how it focuses on people in the gap. Tell us what you mean by that. What does your patient look like?
Well, the HIP program in Indiana focuses on people at 138% of the federal poverty level and below. So we begin to fill in for those folks that maybe between 200 and 400% of the poverty level. The United Way did a study, and they called them ALICE, with an acronym ALICE, asset limited, income constrained, and employed. Little savings, maybe not a lot of progression at work, but they are working.
Right. So you received a $203,000 grant from the IU Health Foundation. Tell us what that's allowing you to do.
Well, up until this time, we've had all volunteer practitioners. All of our doctors, dentists, nurses, nurse practitioners were all volunteers. This has allowed us to add 2 staff members. So for 2 full days a week, we'll have walk-ins, same day, next day appointments. It'll really double or triple our capacity. It also adds more mental health counseling and also some telepsychiatry.
So previously you had to exclude Marion County just because you didn't have the resources, versus now Marion County residents can use Hope Healthcare.
Absolutely. It was a capacity issue.
So there's a business angle to this too. Hendricks County, 75% of the businesses there have 9 employees or less. So tell us how Hope Healthcare can also be of service to small businesses.
Well, certainly not all of those employees are without insurance, but those employers are not required to provide health insurance, and many of them simply can't, or they're seasonal workers, they're self-employed. But that small business, they could be part of the people falling through the cracks, and we're certainly available to them as well.
And what kind of services does Hope Healthcare provide? You mentioned it's not just primary care.
No, not at all. We have some volunteers that do gynecology, urology, 2 pediatricians, chiropractic medicine, physical therapy. On the dental side, we'll do cleanings, fillings, extractions, root canals, oral surgery, some denture work. So
a little bit of everything.
You bet.
It's like a one-stop shop.
We try to be. We also have things like low-cost radiology, prescription assistance, labs.
And you had some impressive numbers on what you've been able to save for people who need prescriptions.
We save about $400,000 a year for some of our patients on the prescription side alone.
And we have just a few seconds left, but you mentioned off camera, you're a well-kept secret, but Hope Healthcare doesn't intend to be. So you're really wanting to get the word out.
Absolutely. The grants allowed us to really triple our capacity. So we need patience.
All right. Well, good luck with the growth. Hopefully we can drum up some interest in you.
Thank you, Kylie.
Remember, you can catch Inside Indiana Business Television on stations throughout the state every weekend. Head to InsideIndianaBusiness.com to check listings. Still to come, a tech-based take on teacher development and the latest on sports gaming in Indiana. But first, Drone Deck bills itself as the mailbox of the future. The Indiana Startups platform is designed to allow users to ship and receive items by drone to and from their own homes or businesses. CEO Dan O'Toole joined IU's Don Karotko on the INnovators with Dr. K.
The question I always ask is, where exactly did you come up with this idea?
Well, believe it or not, I was driving down a rural road, and there was a field parallel to me, and I was driving, and there was a drone almost like tracking me. And I had just heard about drone delivery coming soon, and I just started kind of brainstorming that, and I thought, you know what, what's the end game on that? Where are the packages going to end up? And I believe that when one person has an idea, 10 people have the same idea. And so I went home, brainstormed it, and I filed for a patent within a week.
Fantastic.
So here we are.
So Gary mentioned the kinds of things it does. What is Drone Deck exactly now?
As Gary said, it's the mailbox of the future. It's going to bring all the modern conveniences to your mailbox. Currently, you have a mailbox without any brains, and you put a flag up. This is going to have a phone app with it. We have a heated and cooled cargo area. Just so many innovations. You won't believe the technology that's going to come to bear with it.
Speaking of that, as an innovation, what are an example of the innovation behind it?
Sure. Well, drone delivery is coming, so we needed to have something to match the innovation of drone delivery. So here, now we have the secure receptacle called Drone Deck, which is probably, it completes the final mile solution. It's one thing to get the item to your porch,
right?
But if you just leave it there, that's not going to give you the value you really need. So Drone Deck brings all the conveniences, lets you know when you receive something, what you have. You can return items through it. You can ship or receive with it. It's got just a ton of different claims that we've been able to get with it.
Fantastic. So I understand you filed for the patent. You have the patent, is that correct?
I have the patent. I actually brought it with me
there it
today.
is.
Yeah.
Wow. And how many days ahead of Amazon, you said?
I beat Amazon by 9 days. I beat the Postal Service by about 2 weeks.
That's fantastic.
Some others as well.
So it truly is your innovation now.
Thank you. Yeah, I believe so, yeah.
That's great. What do you think is the potential market for this?
The market is, I almost feel like I lose credibility when I start talking about the market size, because it's really, this will be the gateway to every home and business in the country.
Wow.
And, so the sky's really the limit.
Yeah, really interesting. Capital funding sources so far, what are you looking at?
So far, I've funded it out of my own pocket, but I'm to the point now where I'm at a crossroads whether a major player is going to jump in with me, license it, purchase it, or if I'm going to start the development on my own and go to raise some funds, and that's what I'm looking at right now.
Okay. So you mentioned tremendous growth potential, obviously. Like you say, this is the gateway, the last mile.
Absolutely.
That's fantastic. Describe the next steps ahead, the year ahead for you now, the challenges ahead.
Well, we just finished our first prototype, and now we're going to take what we've learned from that and start coming up with a production unit. And we're going to continue to explore collaborations with large entities that we're currently in talks with right now, and just kind of see where the road takes us.
Fantastic. When do you think we'll see this in the market, in all honesty, your estimation, Dan?
I'd say the next 18 months to 2 years is you're going to start seeing drone flight and drone delivery going on out there.
Fantastic.
Yep.
Well, as I do on each and every show of Dr. K's Innovators, I try to give some prescriptions. And I took these in the aim of, if you did go the manufacturing route, to develop it yourself.
Sure.
And I call it the 3 knowledge factors. And the first one is knowledge in business, which would mean you've got the technology now and you've really kind of perfected it. But as you know, you got to keep learning more about how do we translate this to a business itself.
Right.
A second one is knowledge in manufacturing, and that's why I said I took this in the avenue if you were going to manufacture, and I said you want to get a good manufacturer to scale up operations, because obviously the growth potential is huge. And lastly, knowledge with investors. We were just mentioning that, and you were especially, in the kinds of investors that you want to look for. But I always mention look for smart money. And that is the kind that can not just give you the money if you go that route, but also help you to grow strategically. And I think those 3 knowledge factors will help you as you go forward.
Thank you.
If, in fact, that's the choice you make.
Hey, I'm ready to go.
That's great, Dan. Well,
Thank you for having me.
Where can our audience find you, Dan?
Sales at dronedeck.com, DRONEDEK.com, or you can call me. I can give my phone number if you want.
Fantastic. Go ahead.
317-694-7520. I'd love to hear from anybody that has any comments or suggestions. Thank you very much.
Fantastic. Well, there you have it, Gary. A phenomenal innovation coming for the future. And you know what? I think the future is almost here now, right here in Indiana.
Later in the podcast, is expanding sports gaming in Indiana's future, and the latest on efforts to boost quality of place in Indianapolis. But now, most Indiana teachers have to renew their license every 5 years, which involves completing 90 hours of professional development during that time. The TechPoint Foundation for Youth is offering teachers a chance to earn some of those hours through its state robotics initiative. Vice President of STEM Education George Giltner has more in our Eye on Education segment.
Give us the lowdown very quickly on the licensing process. So teachers now, they renew their license. They also need to have some professional development as part of that, right?
Yeah, they have about 5 years to renew their teacher license. And one of the ways they can do that is getting 90 hours, what they call PGP points, professional growth points. Those are typically professional development. They're learning some new skills that they can bring back into the classroom. And there's a new requirement that of those 90, 15 of them have to be work-related hours. And so we had just talked with DOE to say we're giving right now professional development to teachers through our State Robotics Initiative grant, our startup grant. And we've been approved and authorized to allow the professional growth that our teachers go through in our program to count towards those 15 hours work-related
So
points.
it's kind of a win-win, if you will, there for teachers getting those points, but also helping to grow this VEX robotics program, which has seen amazing growth.
Yeah. At TechPoint Foundation for Youth, we identified that what we do, let's back up, is that we try to identify STEM programs for students to really connect the classroom to careers. And we identified robotics as a great way to do that. And so we provide what we call startup grants to help start a robotics team. And we do three things. We buy the equipment. So this is an example of a robot that we would purchase for a school to put together. And then we train the teachers, which is a really important thing because these are elementary teachers that don't know how. And that's where the professional development goes. And then thirdly, we provide a small stipend to these teachers so that they feel like they're appreciated for doing these efforts.
Absolutely. And the growth of the program, starting from a relatively small number. Indiana is now the leading state. I know former Indianapolis Mayor Greg Ballard has been a big supporter and proponent of this program.
When we started, we wanted to go elementary to high school. When we started, Indiana had 73 elementary robotics teams in the state of Indiana. 3 years later, we have more elementary and middle school teams than any other state in the entire country. We have about 1,500 elementary and middle school teams, more than California, Texas, Florida. So it's a tremendous amount of growth.
Talk about, in your view, the importance of this robotics program, because it's fun and cool to do, but it really has a number of really impacts.
Well, at TechPoint Foundation, what we're always trying to look for is ways to impact all types of students. We're talking students that are disconnected from the classroom or high-achieving students. And what we enjoy about robotics is it's so multifaceted. You've got to design and create a robot. You have to program it. You have to wire it. And what the great thing about this is this directly relates to the workforce. So the skills that students learn through this one-year program of competing with other teams, building the robot, working and collaborating with their peers and teammates, these are all skills that jobs want to hire. And we have partners, employers that continue to say, we want to hire robotics students because we know they know how to get things done.
Very good. George Giltner is Vice President of STEM Education at the TechPoint Foundation for Youth, and really elevating robotics to the athletics level as well. And not only students, but now teachers getting involved. So a win-win situation.
Absolutely.
All right.
Yeah.
George, thanks very much.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
All right.
Still to come, a progress report on some of Indy's biggest quality of place efforts. But first, industry insiders believe the gaming bill signed into law by Governor Eric Holcomb could be a big boon for the Indiana economy. Among other things, the bill allows sports betting through mobile devices and at Hoosier casinos. State Senator Mark Metzmer, who was one of those behind the bill, sat down with Inside Indiana sports contributor Bill Benner.
As of July 1st, casinos and racinos and satellite sporting places around the state can begin to apply for licenses, and away we go. In general, Senator, what does this bill entail?
Well, the crux of the bill is it would allow sports wagering by participants 21 and older, and you can either bet in person at a casino or racino or off-track betting facility or on your mobile app. And the big debate during session was, do we include the mobile app or not? And several House members had serious concerns about, well, if we allow betting on sports, sports products on your phone, it'll be the nose under the camel's tent, and pretty soon we'll have video poker and everything else. And they're really two completely unrelated, issues. It took quite a bit of discussions with House leadership to put the sports betting back in. When I authored the bill on the Senate side, it started out as Senate Bill 552. We had the sports betting provisions in the bill. It got to public policy in the House, and the House chairman really, he was the one with the most discomfort about the mobile app, and he took it out. And I anticipated at some point in the House it would get put back in either on the floor or in Ways and Means Committee, but it didn't. And so when we got to conference committee, that was one of the big areas of negotiation we had to settle out on, and work with Representative Houston on that closely. And he and Representative Lehman were the two primary people on the House side that I worked with. But at the end of the day, they agreed to put the sports betting back into the bill during conference committee. And the other major provisions of that, all of the casinos can choose to register their companies as a vendor for sports betting or not. I would anticipate they all would. And then they can, the casinos can work, they can either take the risk of the sports bets themselves, or they can hire a company like Bet365. There's companies out there that just do sports betting across the world, and they can contract with them to take the risk, or they can take the risk themselves. Companies like Caesars, Penn National, Eldorado, they're big enough to handle the risk on the bets themselves. But other companies, the smaller casinos like French Lick or Boyd Gaming or some of the other ones, that they'll probably choose to partner with a third-party provider for that.
This cleared by the Supreme Court with a ruling in May of 2018. And Indiana, not the first. I mean, other states now have. I think Indiana is now the 10th state to legalize.
Prior to that, you had New Jersey and Nevada were the two, and then New Jersey was the state that really pushed, to lift the prohibition on, because they couldn't change any of the rules to sports betting, and that was the eventual federal that got repealed that said you can make no more changes to your sports betting laws, and that got ruled unconstitutional. And so New Jersey was the one that pushed it, and then since then we've had, I think, eight other states this year that have joined on and legalized sports.
Mark, I know you talked to the NCAA, the Indianapolis-based NCAA. They've always been very concerned about wagering on college sports, but
we've got some provisions in there that allow
safeguards
to deal with their concerns, right. and all of the bets that a casino operator wants to include in their betting portfolio have to be approved by the Gaming Commission. And as part of that review process, if the NCAA or the professional leagues want to come in and weigh in with the commission and say why a particular bet might be too risky, the Gaming Commission has complete authority to approve or disapprove any type of bet that might be risky or susceptible to fraud. And we also, with our geofencing, which we really needed to have included to keep the bets confined to within the state of Indiana, that geofencing also would allow the NCAA to petition to actually block the betting within their college stadiums if they want.
And quickly, as we wrap up, we anticipate you'll be able to place a legitimate legal bet in Indiana by...
The goal is to have it ready by the kickoff of the NFL season in September. No guarantees, but that they're working hard to get those folks enrolled and get the rules and everything promulgated and be ready to go, hopefully by the early September.
All right. Well, State Senator Mark Messmer from Jasper, thanks for joining us.
My pleasure.
And it's a new day here in Indiana. Thanks for coming on.
Yep.
And finally this week, we take a look at the big things happening in downtown Indy affecting quality of place, ranging from new restaurants and housing options to scooters and the potential for Indy 11 to locate there. KSM Location Advisor CEO Tim Cook and President Katie Culp take a look in our Ion Economic Development segment.
The Elkhart development I mentioned there, as well as so many other developments around the state, really do impact quality of life, quality of place. Ball State University recently updated their county-by-county rankings. Mike Hicks and the folks at Ball State, county-by-county rankings of quality of place. Any takeaway that you had, Katie, from that report?
Well, I think metrics are always useful. I think that particular formula may start to give a hint at the picture of quality of place, but it's so much more complicated and sophisticated than a simple metric. And so, for example, just because population is increasing at a faster than average rate, or because wages are going up a little bit, that doesn't necessarily speak to what's going on in that quality of place. And I think the definition is broadening a lot to start tackling issues like inclusiveness, diversity. Are we welcoming to millennial workforce, the type of people that the large employers are going to need to hire? And I think that that's when you start looking at maybe more of the qualitative type information, like what's going on in Indy now and other types of things.
Well, you talk about Indianapolis, Tim, certainly a lot of attention has been focused on so many changes related to quality of life downtown, including in the food and restaurant scene.
Yeah, you just see more restaurants popping up, and they're not chains. They're new to that area. If you look down Mass Ave and just downtown, there are so many choices now, and that's part of what you're trying to do. You're trying to create those opportunities and things that attract some of the people that you're trying to get to be downtown.
And in your view, that has a direct impact on the ability to attract and retain people, economic development projects?
Absolutely. Food and drink, that is very appealing to the millennial population, and that's the type of thing that you have to do to attract that workforce.
Not just millennials.
Yes.
Very good point.
But if you look at all the redevelopment projects, like in downtown Indy, for example, although Fort Wayne and South Bend have them, I mean, there is an intentional strategy with food and drink and mixed use, work, live, play, and part of that is having interesting options for food.
Yeah, and food will be a big part of the Bottle Works development, a massive development on the north. I guess it's the north end of Mass Ave. It's going to change that area there in a big way.
Yeah, I mean, Hendricks, they have a great development up on the north side with Ironworks, and this is going to be another addition to that. You've got High Alpha that's going to be an anchor for some jobs, so it really is mixed use in every sense of the word.
Another piece of quality of life, where we hear a lot about it, quality of place, is transportation, connectivity, and the ability to be walkable and get from point A to point B. In downtown Indy, we've seen scooters pop up in a big way. It's causing some controversy in some areas. But also the Red Line transit, mass transit, is becoming reality. As you look at those things, Katie, I'll start with you. The Red Line, people are telling me, hey, this is really going to happen because they can physically see it coming out of the ground.
You can feel every minute of it in your commute, but
exactly.
Short-term pain, long-term gain.
Yeah.
I think it's going to be really interesting. You've got a large number of a younger workforce, like up in Fishers, and the people I talk to, there seems to be a real interest in trying to look at. There's appeal to looking at your phone or reading the paper the whole way down if you don't need your car every day. But I mean, we're still the Midwest, so I can't wait to see what those numbers are.
How does it impact, Tim, in your view, companies' decisions? Again, you talk about the millennial, those younger workers. How does it affect that?
Yeah. Transit's an issue in Indianapolis, and I think it's an important part of the solution. I think it had some controversy associated with it. It still does, but at this point, it's going to happen. We need to get behind it as a city and make sure we do everything we can to make it successful.
You've got to have residential options, and for the longest time, years ago, Indianapolis could never get that residential component going. Now, lots of folks are living downtown. Is overbuilding an issue on the apartment side?
I think it's to be determined. There's certainly a critical mass of people downtown now, and it's supporting all that other investment. So the developers, they continue to build, and I think until you start to see some flattening out, it's going to continue to happen.
Yeah, and big projects too. Ambrose with the waterside development, the old GM stamping plant is a massive development that folks are looking forward to as well.
Yeah, and with regard to the residential and the housing, these plans are always fluid, and good developers pivot as information changes. So I have no doubt if it's overbuilt, it won't stay they won't continue on that trajectory.
Yeah. Lots changing in Indianapolis and certainly around the state of Indiana when it comes to quality of life, quality of place projects. Tim Cook, Katie Culp, thanks for some great perspective as always.
Thanks, Gary.
All right.
That wraps up this week's Inside Indiana Business television podcast. Remember, you can find all of this week's TV segments, as well as the top business news from throughout the state, at InsideIndianaBusiness.com. While you're there, you can also subscribe to our platform of free e-newsletters. This is Andy Ober for Inside Indiana Business.